morning once again. Good morning. Okay, today I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you, when you were growing up, were called copycats?
Because she used to have a particular kind of style. She used to always wear some trinket or some bangle or something, and I wanted to wear the same thing the next time I wore it.
Okay.
So, yeah. So
yeah, anybody else? Yes, Divya?
I called one of my classmates a copycat. During some time back, I had a habit of wearing two ponies, and then as I started wearing two ponies, my classmate also started wearing it from the next day.
Okay.
So therefore I called her a copycat.
Okay, anybody else? Do you remember when you were growing up, you came back home approximately when you were 4 and 5, and many of you imitated your teacher. You tried to take your mummy's sari or mummy's dupatta and tried to wear a sari, or maybe you took the shopping bag and you went shopping, or maybe you acted like a pilot or a bus conductor, ticket, or did you also remember that you even must have taken something that is round and acted like a bus driver? Do you remember those days when you tried to imitate your elders? Can you remember? Can you tell me something else? How many of you played teacher? How many of you played mummy daddy? How many of you played robber policeman? Doctor patient. Okay. What do you think you were doing then? You were imitating. Very good. What else? And so today you are telling me in very simple words, what is observational learning? Today we are going to talk about observational learning. What is observational learning? Observational learning is learning achieved by watching, copying, imitating the actions of another, or noting the consequences of those actions. There are so many young boys who take daddy's razor and try to shave because they see daddy shaving. There are so many young girls who take mummy's lipstick tube and try to paint their lips. There are so many girls who take some cloth and tie it to their head and then go about thinking that they have a nice long plait. All of us are copycats. Now, observational learning is also known as social learning. Why do you think it is called social learning? I'm born into a family. A family is my basic social group. I don't know how to take care. I'm learning my language. I'm learning to talk. I'm learning to smile. And so you find that I am copying the actions, the gestures, the postures, the sounds of my daddy, my mummy, and people around us. So learning that takes place in a social situation is known as social learning. Observational learning is also known as modeling. Observational learning is also known as vicarious learning. I look the way teacher praises Crescentia because she got 10 out of 10, and ma'am says, all of you clap hands for Crescentia, and here is a big 5-star Cadbury for Crescentia. And there's Neha feels, next time I must study well. Even I want to get 10 out of 10 because I want that little reward, or maybe mummy has promised her something, or just because looking at Crescentia, getting that positive feedback encourages Neha to study better. But if Crescentia gets 1 out of 10 and I say, Crescentia, I do not like it, you have got only 1 out of 10, please stand up and go out of my class. Neha gets slightly frightened and she learns, I better not get 1 out of 10. Hey, I better study a little bit more. Let me at least get 3 out of 10. Then teacher won't send me out of class. So I learn vicariously. I observe the consequences of an action. I observe the consequences of my model's action. Observational learning is also known as vicarious learning. And of course, we all know observational learning is also learning by or learning through imitation. We have all imitated the new hairstyle, new salwar kameez that you have worn, the new slippers or the new something that you're wearing. We all learn, and we have all models. We have young girls and boys in the class. One of you must be walking like Salman Khan, another one must be walking like Aishwarya Rai. So we also learn a lot of things through imitation. Now, I said that observational learning is also known as modeling. And the main proponent of this theory was Albert Bandura. In the year 1977, he spoke about his theory of social learning theory. Now, he conducted a classic experiment way back in 1963. Let us look at the picture very, very carefully. Bandura showed one group of nursery school children a situation where the adult models behaved very aggressively towards a Bobo doll, an inflated toy that bounces back whenever it is knocked down. The adult who was serving as a model knocked the doll down, sat on it, insulted it verbally, and repeatedly punched it on the nose. Another group of children were exposed to a model who behaved in a quiet, non-aggressive manner. Later, both groups of youngsters were placed in a room with several toys. Careful observation of their behavior revealed that those who had seen the aggressive adult model often imitated the person's behavior. They too punched the toy, sat on it, even uttered verbal comments, and they showed lot of aggressive behavior. While the children who were not shown an aggressive model did not behave that way. So he came with this new theory of social learning theory, and he talked about modeling. As children are growing up, and even much later, it plays a very important role that we look at one another, we see how to imitate, we reproduce your action, your gestures, your postures, your emotion, your anxiety, your tension, your fears are all imitated through this role or through observing one another. We observe mommy and daddy, and we imitate quite a few characteristics of our mom and of our dads. Very important factors that affect observational learning. The first important factor that affects observational learning is attention. What is attention? I focus my awareness to a particular person. And who is this person? This person obviously should be very attractive to me, obviously should perform something extremely well. He or she should be successful, have status, and also possess some characteristics that make me look up to him, identify with him, identify with her. That is why I must be looking at Salman Khan, or who are the recent people that we are looking at. So all of us are imitating different types of people because different types of people's behavior is relevant to my needs and my motives. Unless that person's behavior has some connection with my needs and motives, I will not observe him, I will not imitate him, I will not model my behavior after him. So the first important factor is attention. Who do you think are the most important people in my life? Parents. That is why Not only because of genes, it's also because of the environment. Many of us turn out to be like mommy and daddies. Many of us behave like mommy and daddies. Many of us walk like mommy and daddies. Many of us talk. Many of us have certain behavioral symptoms and even emotional symptoms and even illnesses like mommy and daddy because of imitation, because of social learning, because of modeling, because of vicarious learning. So the second important factor is retention. What is retention? I look, I observe, I am aware, and now it is retained somewhere. I store it somewhere. If I am not exposed to something, then I have no memory of it. So I retain, I store information, I store the models that I am exposed to. So exposure plays a very important role. That's why when you're growing up, mommy says, don't do this, don't do that, don't go there, don't see those movies. I don't want you to go to the neighbor's house because that's not a very nice house. Because according to her, she's using a process known as selective exposure. Because you are going to retain, you are going to store the information that you have accepted, observed. The third important factor is reproduction. I remember the actions of the person. I remember the gestures. I remember the hairstyle. I remember the way she walks. I remember the way she talks. I remember the pattern of the dress. So I reproduce it. So reproduction is actually reproducing that action, reproducing that gesture, that posture, that behavior. And the last factor that affects observational learning, according to Albert Bandura, is motivation. What is motivation?
Something that you've seen and you want the most,
Very
to have
good.
the desire to do something.
Very good. Please remember, it's an urge from within to reach a goal. So whenever I say motivation, there is an urge, there is a drive, there is a need, and there is a goal. And each of us have different goals, and that is why each of us imitates different sorts of people. I may imitate my dad because dad satisfied some of my basic needs, but my sister is imitating mom. So depending upon our level of motivation, our internal needs and drives, and depending upon our goals, we imitate and we reproduce the behavior depending upon our motivation. Now in the picture you will see little children dancing. How many of you remember that even now the teacher is giving you the guidance, 1, 2, 3, 4, even your aerobics, even your classical dancing, even your Western dancing, even the hip-hop dancing, all this is a result of, to a very great extent, a result of observation. And we are taking in lot, and if I'm not interested in hip-hop dance, Western dance, even if you send me every day, I will not reproduce any of those behaviors. I should have some sort of motivation within me to reproduce those behaviors.
What is the role of identification in this observational learning? That means when a person identifies himself to others.
What is identification? Why is it I identify with my mother? Why is it I identify with the teacher I love the best? What is identification?
Liking them.
Liking them?
Likes.
Likes? What else? There is some kind of nurturance that is given by that particular person, and that person is fulfilling some of my basic needs. It could be my need for affection, it could be my need for recognition, it could be my need for acceptance. And there is a kind of a positive feeling towards that person. Usually I identify with people whom I have a positive relationship. And once I identify, there is a kind of an unconscious behavior where I imitate the postures, the gestures of that particular person. There was this little baby who was abandoned by the father. So whenever she used to come to meet me, this little girl used to take her lip like this. All the time she used to take her tongue and roll it under her upper lip. And I wondered why. Till I met the aunt. The aunt has a little shorter lip, and whenever it is dry, the aunt takes her tongue and then does. The child unconsciously has learnt it and is imitating her aunt, who looked after her, especially during those first 5 years when she was abandoned by her father and her mother.
Ma'am, you just said that the girl used to imitate her aunt unconsciously.
Yes.
So when we imitate somebody, most of the time, is it unconscious?
At the earlier levels, at the earlier stages, we are now, I'm trying to make the concept identification very clear. I'm identifying with a person who has satisfied some of my emotional needs, and I love the person. The person is making me feel good about myself. There is a bond between me and that person. So there is a tendency for me to imitate whatever my significant other is doing.
Children watch a lot of TV, and if this baby in this experiment has just by seeing somebody hit a doll has learned to do the same. I mean, children watch a lot of things on TV now, and there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of...
You are asking me the relationship between observational learning and aggression. Yes, there is a relationship between observational learning and aggression. Yes, many a times we look at our models and we do as they are doing and not what they are saying. We imitate what they are doing and not what they are saying. So when I am looking at 15,000 hours of TV viewing, it may be positive, it may be negative. There are chances that I am going to learn certain amount of aggressive behaviors. Yes, certain aggressive behaviors are learned. Yes, the techniques of aggressive behaviors can be learned just by viewing TV violence. Unfortunately, it decreases your inhibition by watching too much of TV violence. And it also can lead to a greater readiness to act aggressively. And there's also an insensitivity to the problems, to the pain of victims of aggression. And it is up to us to tell our kids that is not the reality, that is not the way to handle situations. Give them a choice, show them another way. And experiments have been conducted where you show another way, make them aware that these are the camera effects, these are the dramatic effects that are created on TV. It's not reality. We have to make our children aware that whatever they see on TV may not and need not be reality. So observational learning is the basis for the development of more social behavior. The way I learned to be a pilot, I have to. I know I get instructions, but many of my things that I'm learning to do are a result of imitation and observation. So when the surgeon is operating on the patient, he has learned these techniques through observation. So you find that we also learn negative and dangerous behaviors through modeling. For examples, we look at our parents, and if they are frightened of snakes, we have a greater tendency to acquire that kind of behavior. So also children who are abused in childhood have a greater tendency to abuse their children. So also my little friends who are learning to smoke, it is number one because of peer pressure, number two it's because of imitation, it's because of modeling. I take the first puff and then once again cognitive interpretation whether I want to become an addict or not.
Watching TV decreases sympathetic and empathetic behavior. That is so true because in the recent Delhi blast, most of us when we were watching it, we had no sympathy and no empathy at all. It has become so common that it's like just watching another TV serial or watching a movie on television. There was absolutely no reaction.
That is very, very sad. That's what is happening now. We are watching so much of sadness on TV that we are all becoming insensitive. So it's necessary to be aware that we are insensitive, but take action. That's why we need cognitive interpretations. We need to be aware that we are becoming insensitive, but try to do something for all those victims who really need our help. Now, I told you, we not only learn negative and dangerous behaviors through modeling, we also learn positive behaviors. So there are cases where Bandura showed children who were very frightened of dogs, a person who was extremely brave with dogs, and he was called as Fearless Peer. And after the children were exposed to Fearless Peer, many of these children made certain approaches to go and touch the dogs after looking at the strong model who was not frightened of dogs. So we have to show our children the right models. We have to teach in class that TV viewing is good. We have to regulate TV viewing. We cannot allow our children to watch TV too much. Neither should we allow ourselves to watch too much of negative TV, violence on TV. We have to fill our cognitive domain. We'll have to increase our knowledge, our expectation, our mental dimension with things that are good and beautiful in the world.